Why does the deep sea evolve creatures into horrifying sizes? The deep sea is a place where evolution doesn't just act differently, it behaves like it's gone mad. Down there, in the cold and crushing darkness, tiny creatures grow into giants, harmless animals turn monstrous, and life seems to follow rules opposite to the world we know. Why does the ocean's deepest zone create such horrifying sizes? What forces are shaping these oversized, alien-looking beings? The ocean's hidden factory of giants? The deep sea is like another planet, and one of the bizarre things it does is make animals much bigger than their cousins near the surface. Scientists refer to it as deep-sea gigantism. It's not just a monster story, rather, it is cold water combined with crushing pressure, odd food rules, and long, slow lives that together push some species to grow huge. Noah has written about this phenomenon and how it shows up in many invertebrates and fish. One big idea is that cold water slows an animal's metabolism. When metabolism runs slowly, organisms often grow and mature more slowly too, but they can keep growing for a long time and end up much larger. Think of animals that take decades to reach full size. Cold water also holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water, and higher oxygen can support bigger bodies in creatures that rely on diffusion or low-energy lifestyles rather than fast swimming. Researchers have explored this oxygen temperature idea and found it helps explain why polar and deep environments favor larger sizes in some groups. A review of the oxygen temperature link digs into the science behind this idea. Food is weird down there. The deep sea receives very little sunlight, which therefore makes photosynthesis practically zero. Most food arrives as marine snow, or as rare, big meals like dead whales. In this patchy world, large body size can be beneficial in many cases. Big animals can travel farther for scarce meals, store energy for long fasts, or outcompete others when a big carcass shows up. That's one reason scavengers, like giant isopods and some deep crabs, are so big they're built to take maximum advantage of those rare feasts. Stories and specimen finds reported by the Smithsonian and other outlets give great real-world examples. Finally, there are fewer predators and very slow life rhythms. Where life moves at geological paces, animals can invest in larger bodies and longer lives rather than quick reproduction. Over millions of years, evolution experiments with these extremes. Sometimes the result is giants like colossal squids or the massive, slow-growing Greenland shark. The journalistic and science treatments of these ideas summarize nicely and also point out that deep-sea gigantism isn't a single rule but a bundle of forces lining up differently across groups. Why the deep sea breaks all the rules of size. The deep sea doesn't just make animals strange, it sometimes pushes them into sizes that seem to break every rule we learned on land. One useful way scientists think about this is by borrowing ideas from islands. When a population becomes isolated in a weird, limited world, sizes can shift in surprising directions. Tiny things get bigger, big things get smaller. The deep ocean acts like an island in 3 dimensions. So the same island rule ideas help explain why some lineages evolve unusually large bodies far from the shore. Another part of the puzzle is how animals reproduce down there. In the deep, where mates are hard to find, some species evolve unusual reproductive strategies, like producing lots of tiny drifting young, or investing heavily in a few big offspring. When parents invest more in fewer young, selection can favor larger adult bodies that can store energy and protect offspring, or provide richer eggs. In some fish groups, scientists have even found differences in sensory organs tied to mating roles, suggesting sexual selection, the pickiest mate wins, can push one sex to be larger or more elaborate. For arthropods, crabs, shrimps, and their allies, body size is tied to the life process involved in growth as well. These animals are obliged to molt to get bigger, and molting is an expensive and risky business. For deep-sea crustaceans, scientists have discovered growth patterns and molting cycles that favor fewer, bigger molts rather than a lot of small ones. That pattern can produce much larger final sizes over the lifespan of an animal, since each successful molt yields a big jump in body mass. Detailed studies of growth support how such a life history route leads to giants in some groups. Big, rare food events count too. The ocean floor can get sudden, huge meals, a dead whale, a mass die-off, or a seasonal pulse of sinking plants and animals. In cases when food shows up in rare, enormous packages, being big pays off. Large scavengers can dominate that windfall, travel to it, and survive long gaps between meals. Long-term studies of whalefall communities show how these resource pulses reshape life on the seabed and create niches where large size pays off. Finally, don't treat gigantism as one single rule. Evolution experiments differently across groups. What makes a worm giant is not the same as what makes a crab giant. Genetic and developmental constraints, historical accidents, and ecological opportunity all mix together, making the deep sea a mosaic of size strategies rather than one size fits all. That's why giants appear in some lineages but not others, and why scientists are still piecing the story together using ecology, life history data, and evolutionary theory. Zero sunlight, maximum weirdness. The deep sea is one of those places sunlight simply doesn't reach. That absence of light turns life into something strange, magical, and often spooky. Below roughly 200 meters, the sun fades. The moment you go deeper than about 1,000 meters, you have entered the world of complete darkness, the so-called midnight zone, where sun, moon, and stars are gone. In this pitch-black world, the usual rules of survival, sight, photosynthesis, and familiar food webs do not apply. On land or near the surface, plants use sunlight to make food via photosynthesis. But deep underwater, photosynthesis becomes impossible. There are no forests, no algae farms, no green plants. The light energy that fuels most life on Earth disappears rock bottom. So how do deep-sea animals eat, navigate, and even find a mate? Nature got creative. Rather than depending on sunlight, many have evolved bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. Some glow softly, some flash suddenly, some pulse slowly. That glow is life's survival tool. It helps creatures lure prey, avoid predators, signal to possible mates, or even hide by blending into faint background light. Because sunlight never reaches that depth, most deep-sea fishes and invertebrates have developed enormous sensitive eyes, or in some cases no eyes at all, instead relying on other senses, such as smell, pressure waves, or even the detection of bioluminescent signals from other animals. For example, a few species stretch their eyes into telescope-like tubes, designed to gather every scrap of faint light that might exist. Camouflage also means something different. Many deep-sea animals are transparent, red or black, colors that make them nearly invisible in the dark. Red, especially, is invisible under deep-sea lighting, because red light dies out close to the surface. So a red animal down below basically looks like a shadow. Others build mirrored or silvery bodies so that even if faint light hits them, they don't show up. Because food is scarce, life down there moves slowly. Many creatures spend long periods drifting, waiting, conserving energy. And bioluminescence helps them make the most of limited opportunities. When a faint glowing lure appears, a hungry predator might move instantly. When two deep-sea fish glow in sequence, it might be mating season. Some of the weirdest-looking beings alive, glowing jelly-like creatures, ghostly fish with dangling lures, and nearly transparent crustaceans, are all the result of millions of years of evolution adapting to no sunlight but maximum weirdness. When darkness becomes a breeding ground for giants, down deep, past where the sun ever reaches, darkness doesn't just make life harder. It reshapes life altogether, sometimes allowing creatures to grow vast, strange bodies. In those abyssal waters, the usual pressures faced by surface animals, like needing to hide from sight-based predators or relying on sunlight for food, vanish. Without light, there's little reason to stay small for stealth, and much more incentive to become big, slow, and efficient. In a world of unending dark and crushing pressure, many deep-sea animals adopt a lifestyle of patience. Cold, stable conditions slow down metabolism, meaning these creatures grow slowly, but can keep growing for decades, or even longer, before reproduction. That slow pace gives them time to become truly massive compared with their shallow water relatives. When visible light disappears, vision becomes nearly useless. There's no point in speed, agility, or flashy colors. Consequently, natural selection pressures favoring camouflage, speed, or clever escapes tend to relax. With fewer predators hunting visually in the dark, large size becomes a survival advantage rather than a liability. Large body size means more energy reserves, better ability to travel farther for scarce food, and greater resistance when meals are few and far between. Life in the dark also reorders energy and resource use. Many abyssal creatures have bodies composed of soft, water-rich tissues rather than heavy bones or rigid shells. That is how they resist the immense pressure without being crushed. That lighter, flexible structure lets them grow larger without risking collapse under pressure, the way land animals might if they were scaled up. In effect, the deep sea becomes a kind of pressure cooker for a very different sort of evolution, one in which time moves slowly and threats are few if you're enormous, and where the whole environment encourages bulk over speed. What might be clunky or vulnerable near the surface, a huge, slow-moving, soft-bodied crab or sponge becomes perfectly adapted to survive down deep. Over millions of years, the darkness becomes the breeding ground, not just for weird-looking animals, but for real giants. The colossal creatures we never see coming. The deep ocean hosts creatures so bizarre, huge, and so unlike anything we see near the surface that when we finally glimpse them, it feels like discovering monsters from another world. One of the stars of this hidden realm is Bathynomus giganteus, the giant isopod. This crustacean, related to your garden pillbug, can grow up to about 50 centimeters long and roam depths of hundreds to thousands of meters, scavenging carcasses and leftovers on the seafloor. Then there is Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni, the colossal squid. Larger and more heavily built than its famous cousin, the giant squid. This creature lurks in the deep cold of the Southern Ocean. Some studies suggest it might reach lengths over 10 meters and weigh up to hundreds of kilograms, making it one of the heaviest invertebrates on Earth. Its huge eyes, among the largest of all animals, help it detect even the slightest glow or shadow in near-total darkness. It is not just crustaceans and squid that break the molds. Deep-sea amphipods, such as the supergiant amphipod, Alicella gigantea, reach up to about 34 centimeters in length, whereas their shallow water relatives are just a few centimeters in length. These animals flourish in extreme depths, where cold, pressure, and scarce food resources create a very different kind of evolutionary play area. The giants of the deep are not all bulky, some of them are long. The Praia dubia, for instance, is a kind of siphonophore which reaches an astonishing length of up to 50 meters in some cases. It is a slender, almost broomstick-thin creature, but its length rivals that of the largest whales. Because it's composed of a colony of smaller units called zooids, it behaves as one collective organism. Astonishingly, these animals are surviving in a world devoid of food, with immense pressure, and having never seen a glimmer of sunlight. Their large size relative to mass and/or length works as part of their survival strategy. In cold water, where metabolisms are slow, building a bigger body does not demand continuous feasting. On the contrary, energy stores, delayed growth, and bodies built for slow, steady cruising are perfect adaptations to deep-sea life. Because so many of these creatures stay deep and hidden, we rarely, if ever, see them in their natural habitat. That's why, when scientists do capture them alive, or even preserved, it feels like stumbling upon a cryptid. This hidden world of strange shapes and giant proportions serves as a reminder of all that we still don't know about our own planet. The secret diet that turns shrimp into giants. Deep sea life survives on a diet most of us would never imagine, which is specifically why beings such as deep-sea shrimp and amphipods turn out to grow so huge. In the darkness far below the waves, food doesn't come from lush coral reefs or sunlight-fueled plankton blooms. Rather, creatures wait for rare meals to drift down from above, or snack on whatever falls, even wood or waste. Tiny bits of organic matter, leftovers from dying plankton, waste bits of dead sea creatures, slowly drift downward in what scientists call marine snow. This slow rain of detritus, though sparse, is the baseline diet for many deep-sea crustaceans. Some of the shrimp-like amphipods filter or scavenge the marine snow, building up energy little by little over time. For creatures that grow slowly and live a long time, even this trickle can add up. Then there are the jackpot meals. Occasionally, the ocean delivers big food packages, like the sinking carcass of a whale or dead fish. When that happens, scavengers like the deep-sea giant isopods or large amphipods rush to feast. These rare feasts offer huge payoffs, enough nourishment to support lengthy fasts or long stretches with no food at all. Some giant isopods, for example, have been observed surviving for years with almost nothing to eat. There is even a mind-bending case of deep-sea amphipods, normally tiny shrimps near the surface, surviving by eating sunken wood from trees or plants swept into the ocean and slowly descending to the seabed. In a deep ocean trench, these amphipods have digestive enzymes powerful enough to break down that wood, providing a nutrient source no surface-dwelling creature could use. Deep-sea creatures benefit from lifestyles that are low in energy because food is so unpredictable and hard to come by. Their cold, stable environment slows down metabolism. They require less energy to survive. This provides the added advantage of being able to extend growth and life over years or decades, enabling them to reach sizes far bigger than their shallow water cousins. The deep sea is a world of small, steady snacks raining from above and rare feasts plunging from the sky. Creatures that survive there must be built not for speed or flashy displays, but for endurance, patience, and the ability to gobble up every chance at nourishment. When that strategy combines with slow metabolism and long life, the result is shrimp-turned giants, crustaceans and amphipods that grow far beyond what we expect, living off scraps, falls, and occasional windfalls in the dark abyss. How 8,000 meters of water changes everything. Now imagine being compressed on all sides by the weight of mountains, except instead of rock, it's water pressing down from every direction. In the deep ocean, pressure isn't just a little stronger than on land. It becomes a defining force. Every 10 meters you descend adds another atmosphere of pressure. At depths around 8,000 meters, that means nearly 800 atmospheres squeezing on every square inch of a creature's body. That's like having hundreds or thousands of elephants standing on you at once. It sounds impossible for life to survive under such force. For humans or land animals, the slightest descent would crush lungs, collapse air spaces, and destroy internal organs. But deep-sea creatures aren't built like us. They don't carry air-filled spaces like swim bladders or lungs. Their bodies are mainly composed of water, and water simply doesn't compress the way air does. This carries an important implication. Their bodies aren't squeezed flat, roughly maintaining the same shape even under crushing pressure. But beyond being water-filled, many deep-sea animals have soft, flexible bodies, gelatinous tissues, reduced skeletons or none at all, and cellular structures that don't depend on hard bone or air cavities. And special adaptations mean their cell membranes and proteins function despite pressure so extreme, it would scramble the chemistry of ordinary cells. A huge part of this adaptation involves a tiny chemical called trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. In deep-sea animals, TMAO serves as a kind of pressure-proofing agent. It stabilizes proteins and enzymes, preventing them from misfolding under pressure, and keeps cells functional even when their surroundings are trying to squeeze them flat. The deeper the habitat, the more TMAO builds up. Such adaptations are taken to the extreme in some of the most extreme deep-sea dwellers, such as those living in ocean trenches or at the bottom of the Hadal zones. For example, a deep-water fish called the Mariana snailfish exists at depths well over 8,000 meters. Its body is soft and scaleless, and its proteins and membrane structures are designed to operate under such extreme pressure. What's surprising is that this high-pressure adaptation doesn't just allow survival, it shapes life itself. Because there's no risk of being crushed, and because many traditional constraints like rigid skeletons don't make sense at that depth, evolution takes strange, new paths. Bodies become floppy or gelatinous, structures become light and flexible, and chemical systems evolve to resist molecular distortion rather than support bones or heavy muscle. It's a whole new rulebook. That is why the deep sea feels surreal, not just dark and cold, but built upon pressure equal to skyscrapers stacked on top of you. And yet within that crushing weight, life doesn't just limp along, but thrives and adapts, turning into something strange, beautiful, sometimes giant, sometimes ghost-like, yet always perfectly tuned to a world where 8,000 meters of water is not just ocean, but the force shaping existence itself. The strange case of the giant squid. You know, when we think of the giant squid and its even bulkier cousin, colossal squid, it raises a wild question. Are these sea monsters the result of accident random quirks that got lucky, or the outcome of precise deep-sea design by evolution? The truth seems to be a bit of both. Giant squid can reach lengths up to about 13 meters, about 43 feet, including their tentacles, making them one of the largest invertebrates on Earth. Their eyes alone are about 27 centimeters across, some of the largest in the animal kingdom. That kind of size and adaptation feels almost sculpted, but that doesn't mean it was designed. Here probably is how it went. Deep ocean, dimly lit, danger coming in terms of surprise rather than in terms of miles per hour. Giganticness pays off. A big body means a longer reach. These two feeding tentacles allow the squid to grab its prey from quite afar. These large eyes enable them to pick up even very dim flashes or bioluminescent glows, highly important in the midnight depths. But, as some scientists caution, size doesn't always equal strength, and despite their massive appearance, giant squid aren't known to be super powerful compared with smaller, faster squids. Their musculature and body structure seem more built for an ambush, luring or grabbing than for a rapid chase. Therefore, while the size does help them to survive, it is no guarantee of dominance. Then there is the issue of survival for both predator and prey. For a squid, huge helps when trying to fend off many potential threats, since only very few predators like the deep-diving sperm whale are capable of dealing with such a huge creature. But that too suggests a trade-off. To maintain such size, the squid need to evolve traits that balance the stretch between being a large predator and being vulnerable to even larger predators. On top of that, the very fact that we know almost nothing about living giant or colossal squid in their natural habitat, most specimens come from washed-up carcasses or deep-sea catches, means there's a strong element of luck and mystery wrapped around them. What we see may be only a few lucky survivors of a much larger population, formed by random variation, environmental influence, and chance of survival. Maybe design is the wrong word, but evolution under extreme deep-sea conditions does seem to have carefully favored traits in size, giant eyes, and long tentacles that give the squid a better chance of survival in a brutal, dark world. Those traits probably emerged through countless generations where each small advantage, a slightly longer tentacle, a slightly better eye meant a better chance to eat, escape, or reproduce. Why being big is the best way to avoid becoming lunch. Down where darkness rules and food is scarce, large size becomes a kind of shield. Compared to near the ocean surface, many deep-sea animals have far fewer predators. That reduced predator pressure means that there's less advantage to staying small and sneaky. Instead, getting big can bring real perks. Being a giant makes an animal a less appealing meal to many predators, which won't waste energy on prey that's too large to swallow or subdue with ease. Furthermore, in an environment where every meal can be rare and hard to find, big bodies help to survive the famine. Large animals can store more energy, travel for longer distances to find food, or outcompete the smaller ones if a large carcass sinks to the sea floor. That energy reserve becomes a survival buffer against long stretches between meals. Also, since cold deep water slows down the metabolism, these giants do not burn energy fast. Their slow metabolisms, along with large bodies, mean they require less frequent feeding compared to what you would expect for their size. So, even if prey are scarce, they don't starve quickly, a smart trade-off. In a world with little light, stealth and speed, usual tools of escape for surface animals lose meaning. No bright water predators zip about. Instead, life is slow. Visibility is close to zero. If you're huge in such a place, attackers are few, attacks slow, and big size itself is a built-in defense. Finally, being large often goes hand in hand with traits that help survive deep-sea life. bigger digestive systems, mouths or stomachs able to handle a large or rare meal, and the ability to endure lean times. In some species, that all adds up. Size becomes not just protection, but a survival strategy. And that's a wrap on today's exploration into the mysterious giants of the deep. If you enjoyed exploring these bizarre creatures and learning why the ocean grows them so huge, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep-sea adventure. Drop a comment below and tell us which creature blew your mind the most. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep wondering about the world beneath the waves.